in the sociology department here, and has been with the sociology department since 1997. She is a certified sociological practitioner, and she's certified by the Association of Applied and Clinical Sociology. She's very well educated for her to be qualified to do this work. She has a bachelor's from the University of Delhi, and she's got an MA and PhD from Jamia Millia University in Delhi, India. And if you're an Indian, you would know how prestigious that university is. In addition to having 24 years of experience teaching graduate and undergraduate courses, Arifa has worked as a sociologist for the International Institute of Metropolitan Detroit. It's an important organization here. And she has run their acculturation project for that institution. In fact, she has set up and run 3 workshops. One on positive parenting in 2 cultures, another in teen challenges and conflicts in a diverse society, and thirdly, cultural sensitivity for teachers. Professor Javed is also well published. One of her publications is a book entitled Muslim Society in Transition, a case study for Muslims in Hyderabad, which was published by Commonwealth Publishers in 1990. She's also written an important chapter in Mary Stenstock's book entitled Voices of Diversity, which was published in 2009. That article is entitled Mainstreaming Immigrant Children Through Coordinated Workshops Addressing Parallel Socialization. But as director of the Humanities Center, I am absolutely grateful to Professor Javed for her support of the work of the center. Since 2006, she has been presenting papers in this Brown Bag series and attending talks that relate to her field. Her Brown Bag talks have included a presentation last year in February entitled Contemporary Family Issues in America. In 2012, in March, she gave a talk entitled Stability and Functionality Among Post-1995 Immigrant Families. In 2009, for example, she presented a lecture entitled Effective Intervention Techniques in Situations of Domestic Violence Among New Immigrants. And in 2006, she gave a talk entitled Paces and Patterns of Acculturation Among Post-1990 Immigrants in America. So you see, she's been engaged in a research way in these issues for many years. Today, she's going to talk about immigration and the 21st century local and global labor market, a case study of Indian immigrants. So my gratitude to Dr. Javed, and I wish you would give her a warm welcome to the podium.
Thank you, Dr. Edwards, for all those kind words. And I thank you all for coming out for my talk. As you see the title, Immigration and 21st Century Local and Global Labor Market, and it's a case study of Indians. Immigration is an interesting concept and a topic. So, and there are mixed reactions each time you open this can of worms. We want the immigrants, we don't want the immigrants, then there's always a debate about it. However, we all know that this country has been a country of immigrants, and different influxes came at different points of time under different circumstances and made different contributions to American society. But still, it is an ongoing debate, and I think it'll continue to be that way. Now, before I get into the actual topic, I would like to see how people define immigration socially and economically. So let's see, what are your ideas about immigration? How do you see that as a process? We all understand it's a process of people coming over from one society to this society, but then there are many strings tied to this movement of people. Would anybody like to? How do you see it? If you, okay, then maybe I'll get into it. And then obviously a question, why do we still continue to promote immigration? Can we stop immigration? And yes, if we want, we can do that anytime. And that's why I was trying to see how it appeals to a person from the society in terms of its social implication and economic implications. Now, can I ask you another question? You don't have to answer if you don't feel comfortable, but I'll throw these questions and then answer them. What is the cost of raising a child in today's America?
Dollars.
Any guess would do.
Dollars and cents.
Yes, dollars and cents. Any guess would do, I'll fix it, don't worry, try it.
Yearly, probably, would depend on the age of the child.
No, before, like, let's say, from
baby
birth to
would be-
18 years. That's when a
Total.
child is ready to be a part of your labor force as a society. So, any guess would do.
About $40,000.
$40,000,
$500,000.
over a
A
million?
million? A million?
500,000, 40,000, over a million, yes. Any more guesses? Quickly, I will fix it. 100,000. It's over $240,000. So children are our assets. Children are our future labor force. And it takes that many dollars to raise each child for 18 years as a society so that they grow up and join the labor force. So when you connect this cost of child raising to immigration, then each person coming in as a grown worker has already settled that cost somewhere else. And he comes in or she comes in ready to work. So that is the economic implication of why we continue to have immigration. Especially when I talk about these issues in the climate of economic deterioration that our country is going through at large, then the state of Michigan, and especially the city of Detroit, I have some question marks on the faces of my students. Yeah, we might believe you what you say, but what about those who are already here? And if new people come in, then it is considered that maybe our resources would be used to running their lives rather than any benefit from them. So there are some things that I would like to clarify. Immigration has always been an economic move to fast bring in a population that we can fit into certain areas. We are looking for workforce to get started. In fact, hit the ground running so that when they come in and take those jobs, they are ready to pay the taxes. Now, by the way, high-tech immigration and labor force, everything, I'm sure you understand, I'm talking about legal immigration. I am not talking about illegal immigration that we cannot track or consider the benefits the same way. So it's a gain of manpower that we look for when we immigrate people. Now, if these people are above 18 and have been to college, now most of you are college students, what are your tuition costs? Anywhere between 40 to 50,000 for your undergrad? And if you choose to go for professions, 150 to 200,000 depending on what you are choosing, law, medicine. Let's be realistic, that's the cost of education. So if you borrow that and go to school, you have a degree, and you're paying easily 10 to 12 years that money that you borrow. See, each person in debt brings America in debt further down. It's not, the debt is neither mine nor yours, it's the national debt. We live here, we're the citizens of this society. So another thing that I'm throwing out for you to think and maybe react is, if these people come with that education, then they're not borrowing that kind of money. And if they come on a job, they already have a paycheck to live on, and before that paycheck reaches their homes, the taxes are deducted. So that's one important thing we look for when we think about immigration. Now, there is a huge demand for high-tech labor force. And United States, being one of the leaders of the developed world, has a higher need for high-tech labor. See, on one hand, education is expensive and not easily affordable. On the other hand, we have the need for those jobs. Today, I deal with undergraduate students on a daily basis. And there is a general fear in them that the jobs are gone. There are no jobs, we are losing jobs. If you ask me, between the decade of 2000 and 2010, we lost about 2 million jobs from Michigan. But do you know what jobs were those? They were mostly the blue-collar jobs. So a first world country like America cannot afford to keep the blue-collar jobs the way they were and yet be leading the world. So it's a shift in economy locally responding to the global pressures. So it's a local and global mutual interaction of the economy that made us redesign our economy and completely get rid of the blue-collar jobs. And they have come to hit us really bad. There were massive layoffs. I do understand that. And those are the jobs that are gone. Now, if you are an undergraduate today and you are depressed about those jobs going away, well, that's not for you. You are not looking for the same manufacturing jobs anymore. You are the labor force of the new millennium. And it's expected of you that you would not look for a job, you would be in a career. And careers are strong and long-term things, but they demand that you have higher college education. So these are some of the realistic pressures for our undergraduate students. And sometimes I laugh at myself when I emphasize especially high-tech careers in science and technology, because that's where most of the jobs are. If you want to join liberal arts, I'm a liberal arts professor and I have nothing against it, but if you talk to me about the labor market, it's my job to tell you where the openings are. And this is an exercise that I often give my students to visit the Secretary of Education's website, Arnie Duncan's website, and figure out what jobs are being created so that they can understand where they're headed in terms of taking the courses and not just pick courses to complete the number of credits required. Well, that's one of the major problems. Students get into high school, the counselors tell them, how many credits do you need to graduate? Those credits can come from anywhere? No. They should come from the fields in which the jobs are being created. So the high-tech need is growing. Now, if you want to be in social sciences, yes, we are technically coming out of an information era. We collected tons of data, and we weight an analysis of the data. In social sciences, yes, statisticians would do really great. And even to be in social sciences, mathematical skills are now becoming essential to survive. So I get undergraduates, oh, I love being an engineer, but I hate math. Now, nobody did tell this child that the two are not compatible. Plus, then this takes my attention to our schools that have not been doing that good of a job in terms of strengthening science and math basis. If you're basically strong, you would like it. Even though these kids might have an aptitude, but they were not trained at an early stage. Elementary school, middle schools are the key to do that. So that put in place, if you connect each link that I'm throwing for my audience out, we have a ton of students who are in school and are not encouraged into these fields. Science and math curricula in our schools, especially in the inner city schools, are falling apart. I don't need to tell you what the situation of inner city schools is. Yes, there are a couple good schools, one or two in Detroit, and you always get students from there, and they are successful. But this is not the story of every kid that goes to school in Detroit. Now, another thing that's connected to the falling apart of schools and deteriorating curricula is, Detroit, I said, is losing population. If you lose population, you lose your tax base. If the tax base shrinks, schools do not get their millage. So one thing links to the other. Now, in this situation, we have two options. Either we wait 2 decades, or at least 12 years. See, anything you start in grade 1, it takes 12 years to show you the colors. So either we wait those 12 years for those students to strengthen their fields of science and math and then be available for higher education, which might take 8 to 10 years again, and then you have the technologically trained manpower, or you get the manpower today so that they pay the taxes, and we use these taxes to fix these loopholes that we have in our system, in our society, in our education, and rise faster. Choice is yours. Maybe we are making the choice to rise faster this way, and that's why immigration is again looked upon as something that can rescue the current economic crisis. I have often been asked questions about the governor's statement that he wants to bring more people here. About 50,000 people on a job visa in different high-tech jobs, and that would be beneficial. I don't know if you can tear that statement apart into the way I am putting in front of you. It makes sense when you analyze it the way I'm talking about, but he just makes a statement and then there is a wave that goes through the society. So I'm unemployed, 10 people in my family have been unemployed, and he wants to bring in more people. The jobs are leaving Michigan. What are those people going to do? Well, he's not going to bring in people without jobs. He's not going to bring in people on the jobs that have already left Michigan, because we don't want to have those jobs. We cannot afford to have those jobs as a first world country, because we need an image established in high-tech world. So it's one thing connected to the other. Now, sometimes you might question that the people that are coming in or would be coming in, especially since this talk is on a case study of Indians, that's a third world country. Overpopulated, 1.2 billion people came out of colonization less than 70 years ago. People coming from there, are they going to be compatible to the technological needs that our society has? You know, yes they are. And the reason is, not everybody in India is high-tech, highly educated, but those who are, they have their emphasis in those fields, because when you start late in a society, you get the latest. Do you see what I'm saying? Maybe there was a lot of illiteracy 2 decades ago. Not many people were going to school and college. But then those who started going to college in last 2-3 decades, they know what the focus of global labor power is going to be, and they pick that. That's why I tell, when you start late, you get the latest. So there is an emphasis to go to schools and colleges and acquire those skills that have a market, because that's a poor country. It cannot afford to let people borrow money for education and acquire it without figuring out if they're going to cash this education and live on it. So I've thrown too much information about the labor force. Try and connect this and see if it makes sense. Now, the way I work with this is, I have been teaching for what now, 18 years on this campus, but altogether this year is my silver jubilee year, 25 years I complete in teaching. Now, ever since I got here, I have been talking about immigrants. Why? Because it's impossible to teach American sociology and not connect the concepts to different waves of immigrants, having come here under different circumstances from different parts of the world and made different contributions and acculturated or assimilated at different paces. Well, that's what gives me the grounding to, ground my teaching subject matter. And by the way, I myself I started my career, as I said, in India, so I was trained in Indian sociology. Then I moved here, and the biggest pressure was that I reroute myself from Indian sociology to American sociology, and that's what makes me a comparative sociologist. So I enjoy comparing and contrasting cultures and peoples and ethnic communities. So that's what my expertise is. So with this being said, for all these 18 years, I was using this production, multicultural peoples of United States, and Amish, German, Greeks, Irish, Italian, and Polish are the videos I have extensively used, maybe twice every year, because I teach a fall and a summer, a fall and a winter. So 18 times twice is 36 times. And each time I would play these videos, I would think, if I had money, if I would ever, have those funds, I would make one for Indians. Part of the reason was cultures being depicted, and those attracted my attention because I have an interest for understanding cultures. And the other thing was, when I was showing that and teaching in class, then my students would have a lot of questions about me, about Indians. And a lot of kids till very recently did not have a teacher in school or in college unless they were chemistry, math, or physics students who looked like me or talked like me. So there were many questions, and they thought whatever I was doing or saying or conducting myself through was Indian. Now, it created a pressure on me. Yes, I represent Indians, but I cannot be a representative of 1.2 billion people. Indians come in all shades, all colors, all kinds of people. So this was, I was living this dream for 18 years, and last summer it did come true, and I ended up making a documentary. Now that documentary is in post-production, and hopefully I would be able to bring it out by first week of April. So if you ever hear about the documentary on Indian immigrants in Michigan, that's my
You have a
documentary.
title?
Yes, the title is Essential Arrival, a case study of Indian immigrants in Michigan. And now, I'm throwing that title out to see what the reactions are. Why did I choose the title, Essential in Arrival? Well, that's the kind of labor force, as I said, we are looking for, and that's the kind of labor force we need to fix our tax situation. Now, when he was making that statement, Governor Snyder also said that each high-tech job that we employ immigrants for creates 2.5 low-level jobs. Because if you set up a hospital and hire a surgeon is not going to do the job by himself. You need nursing staff, you need all kinds of supportive staff. Hospitals have a bunch of other positions. So that's how he sees employment being generated to put Michigan back on track in terms of its economy. Now, there are some points about Indians, since this is a case study of that. I don't know what you think about them. In a minute, I'll ask some questions. But the hardest thing was, when I said Indians, I always ran into the confusion of Native Indians. Which Indians? Oh, okay, East Indians, Asian Indians. So it has to be accompanied by that suffix, or else people would be like, which ones? I would like to share an interesting story that really happened to my children when they moved here in 1995. A teacher asked my son about his nationality, and he goes, "I'm Indian." The teacher says, "What tribe?" He was a 4th grader. He comes back home and said, "Mom, are we supposed to have some tribes? I never thought we had any tribes." So I'm like, "What makes you think now?" "No, my teacher asked me that." If a teacher asks something to a 4th grader, that's got to be correct. So I told them, "No, Indians here have tribes. Tell them you are Asian Indian." The child goes back. After 2 weeks, he comes back again, and he said, "Mom, I said that," but the teacher said, "Oh, Asian Indian." So one parent is Asian, and the other is Indian. This was 1995, when we did not have that many people from India. Between 1995 and now, I will tell you in a minute that Indians are the largest immigrant population in the state of Michigan. So that's how far we've come. Now, races, if you have met people from Indian origin, you'll find that they can be white as white, they can be dark, they can be mixed. So actually there are 2 races that have historically inhabited India. One is the Dravidian, or the dark race, which was later pushed down to south, and Aryans came and inhabited the north. So your skin color speaks a lot about whether you are from the north or the south. So that's about races and religions. In doing research for my movie and always interacting with people, there's a common belief that if you are from India, then you would be Hindu. And I have addressed this in my movie by portraying all different religions. So yes, by far, Hinduism is the largest religion. 80% of 1.2 billion people are Hindus.
So how many are Buddhists, approximately?
Buddhists are, off the top of my head, under 1%. And it's strange that Buddhism originated in India, but you don't have that many Buddhists in India. So the next largest population is about 12 to 13% of Muslims, 3%, 3 to 4% Sikhs, another 3 to 4% Christians. And then every religion of the world can be found in India, point some percent. So it's a multi-religious society. Languages, people have often asked me, do you speak Indian? I don't know how to respond because it's just like asking an American, do you speak American? What do you say? There is no language like American. You all speak English, but that's not American language. So there is no language that's called Indian, but yes, 28 some languages are spread across the nation, and every state has its own language. So imagine Ohio has one, Michigan has one, Kentucky has one. That's the kind of diversity India has.
Same as that.
So any Indian would easily speak 3 to 4 languages because of the close vicinity and how they travel. Now, cultures. It can be interesting and colorful to watch Indian cultural observance, especially I was making this movie at the peak of Indian holidays. It was October, November, where many holidays were there, and the movie does have a cultural depiction of those holidays being observed, and families and how they celebrate and things like that. So all these religions have their celebrations, and by the way, the list of holidays when you get off from work and school in India, I think is the longest list of days. I don't know how they manage it. So all Hindu holidays, major Muslim holidays, major Sikh holidays, major Christian holidays. So it's a lot of celebration going on in that country, and that group celebrates it here too. Now, often people wonder about the Indian castes, what they are and how they function, and class. Now, if you meet an Indian today who comes here, like I'm talking about an immigrant coming here, he would have a caste and a class both, provided he is Hindu, right? So caste is the religious classification based on the spiritual hierarchy and occupation. I'm trying to simplify it. And class comes from your education and profession you practice. So that's why every Indian would be in those two classifications. And more so if he is a Hindu. Like, is there a caste for a Christian? Is there a caste for a Muslim? The answer is no. But yes, always for a Hindu. Okay. Now, before I crack some of the myths and informations, let's see the stereotypes. Can anybody tell me the common stereotypes that you've heard about that float around you? Where you live, where you go to school, where you shop. Feel free, this is a sociological exchange of ideas, so. Yes?
Indians, those groceries, those little mini marts. 7-Elevens. I've heard that stereotype a lot, and I've even seen cartoons Simpsons.
So there's a huge number of people involved in 7-Eleven and other grocery businesses. Okay. Yes.
Dunkin' Donuts?
Dunkin' Donuts. Yeah, I saw Dunkin' Donuts turn Indian. It wasn't for the last 10 years, and now every other Dunkin' Donut you can be comfortable that, oh, it's an Indian. By the way, I don't know anything about it. I cannot eat donuts. Oh, I'm allergic to eggs. But yeah, I've heard of that too, yes, yes.
I have two. One, they marry inside, they only marry people inside their culture. They don't marry outside their culture. And the other one is, I don't know which way it goes, but, like, if you're from like the west or east, like I don't know if it's the West Indian tends to be more, traditional with their garments. And if you're from the other part of India, you're more liberal with your garments or something like that. I don't know how that works.
The dress code.
The dress, okay. I don't know what exactly you heard and you're trying to translate and then, tell, but I'll try to reach as close as I can.
Well, for example, like in my neighborhood, if some of the Indian women, they keep on their garments. They're like a pretty, and they're covered. But you could be on campus and someone that is Indian, that for sure they're Indian, they're not in those type of garments covered up.
They wear pants and stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm saying, I think it maybe.
It's not the east or the west.
Oh, okay.
It's how long you have been. What professions are you in? Do you go to school or college? If you go to work, when I started working here, they never asked me to be dressed like this. I could have easily come here and start teaching in a sari. I did not want to add more diversity to my persona and make people ask me questions. Plus, those dresses are not weather feasible. If it's this cold, I need to wear a boot, I'm not going to wear a boot on a sari and look crazy. Then I need a pretty chippal to wear the sandals, right? So it's a matter of where they're going, so they would switch. Like you said, in college you don't see those long dresses, but on a weekend in your neighborhood you might see them walking around. So
Typically with the older women.
older women, yes. And do I qualify to be an older woman yet or no?
No.
You're trying to be polite. When I told you
like
I've when I told you I've been here all these years, that make me an old woman now. But yes, on weekends I do that. I wear my Indian dresses on Indian parties. Well, that's the time when I get to dressed up. And those dresses are the dresses as a young girl I have looked forward to being and dress up. I never knew I was going to end up in America. So that's a cultural expression of mine. So I love doing that there. But when I come to work, I don't want people to look at me and say, oh, you're pretty, or the dress is pretty. No, I'm fine with this. So they switch. Now your other comment about marrying within their own groups, yes. Earlier it used to be people would marry in their own castes, but now it's broadening and people would ideally want everybody to marry within their groups, but I cannot say that Indians only marry Indians. It again changes. When my generation came, maybe some of us were already married and we married in our culture. But when we are raising our kids here, it's a dream of most Indian parents that their kids marry in their group. But then kids are going to school and college and they're meeting people and maybe they meet Indian friends, maybe they meet friends from other culture. So there's no strict rule about that. They choose to, but then there are other factors like everywhere else. If the kids are growing up, they change. Even in India, they're marrying outside their religions and castes. Not everybody, but yes. If they meet in school, college, at work, and they fall in love, parents try, but they cannot make that happen. So yes. Any more stereotypes? Yes.
I recently was told that some Indian women walk behind their man, their husband or whatever, just walking down the street. And
Yeah,
so
my grandma did that.
they said that it happens sometimes, but I mean now that some of the younger women don't do it.
How things work. Things work exactly the same way in different cultures. But when we look at the other culture, we do not look at the other culture the same way. What do I mean by that? And I said my grandma did that. Why did my grandma do it? Because she never went to college. She didn't have a job. She did not know how the outer world looked like, and my grandfather took pride in walking ahead of her and, you know, hey, make way for my wife. That was a privilege to be walking behind her husband. But you've been hearing me for the last 40 minutes, and a generation and a woman from that background in my situation may walk. If I don't want to touch that doorknob, I'll make him do that for me. But other than that, that's not something Indian. It looks like the education, professional expertise, economic independence is a neutralizing factor for that hierarchy as it's here. You all know all grandmothers are so dependent upon their husbands. Well, young kids of your age in school and college, you look at them and say, I don't know, Grandma, how you survive those rules. I can never live those rules. So things change depending on the education, professional expertise, the independence come from economic freedom, all those things. It's a class factor again, upper, middle, and lower class. So when I say this, you're like, yeah, I felt the same way, and when his family is here too. So things act very parallelly. Yes, any more stereotypes?
Is that a group of Muslims or Hindus or what?
I left that with question marks for you to decide. And you know why I did that? You've heard about Miss America being Indian, right? Do you know that? Okay, you'll find out now, yes. That is the latest addition to all these things. That Miss America is Indian. And the next day, people thought Miss America is a relative of terrorists. Why? Because she is a person of color, and all those people overseas are related to one another. Well, if you geographically know where India is and where Middle East is, it has nothing to do with her connection to the country, to the area. She grew up in Michigan, went to the University of Michigan, then she went to New York, and that's where she's established now. So the first thing you see, oh, she's different. She's neither white nor black. She's got to be a terrorist. That's a reaction to smaller minorities till you don't find out more about them. And this effort of the documentary is to educate more about Indians as people and culture, so that people do not confuse them if they're neither white or black. Well, there are their identities. Let's find out what they are. Okay. Now, these are some of the facts and figures. Population-wise, there are about 3.2 million in the United States. They're the largest immigrant community in Michigan. Their population is about 90,000, so one community of 90,000 makes them the largest community. Their education level is 80% holding college and advanced degrees. Most of their field of expertise is STEM fields, which is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, or you can use that for medicine as well. Their income levels are $45,000 a year with median household, and $88,000 per year. So, family stability, yes, it's relatively high. From the Indian standards, 9.5% is high. But if you look from the American standards, well, it's pretty stable. Now, when it comes to Indian work ethics, they're known to be very hardworking. If they've traveled all the way from there to make a better future, it's not just Indians, most immigrants have that work ethic to do better, or else what's the point of making this shift? Now, interestingly, India has about 43% of its population self-employed. You know, self-employed people are have a different work ethic, because all your losses are yours, all your gains are yours. You're not being paid a salary. So that ethic gets translated into a pretty high turnout when they get here. Okay, by the way, you see that young lady? I don't know. I don't have any of those who recognize her.
Is that you? Is it you?
No, it's not me.
No, you're not in, she's got my lab coat, but she must be in healthcare.
She must be in?
Maybe she's in healthcare.
Yeah, she's
has
in
on the lab.
healthcare. She happens to be my daughter.
Your daughter. That's not-
Here my mom instinct pops out. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that. So this is one of our two children who was raised here, born there, and then this is who she turned out to be. She is a psychiatrist, works in Tucson as a resident.
That's nice.
I tried to include my son's picture too, but he didn't agree. You know, we moms lose. So this is what I'm trying to do with the documentary. It's a depiction of Indians as people and cultures, and it's an experience of ethnic enrichment for American audiences. So what are you going to get if you watch my movie for about 60 minutes? And then it's also a reflection of American pluralism in terms of how we let the minorities come in and survive, thrive, and then give back to the society. So it's a two-way thing. Now, these are some of the challenges, and I look forward for that immigrant group, which is my case study group, to fix the problems for the state of Michigan and the city of Detroit. It's going to be a kind of reinvestment. It would broaden the tax base, replace the manufacturing jobs with the high-tech jobs. We need to improve our educational standards, emphasize STEM fields, retain international graduates, and repopulate Detroit with inhabitants with higher tax-paying capacity, because that's something that's coming back to hurt us. Now, a word about retention of international graduates. Why do we get international students? We could say, no, we don't need them. Well, they pay us 3 times more the tuition, and it's good. Who doesn't want the money that comes with it? Imagine this, you are all Michiganders. If you were to enroll in Ohio, you're going to pay an out-of-state fee. So an out-of-country fee is even higher, right? The tuition is higher. So we need them, we bring them here. But over these years, for Indians ever since 1960s, they would come get educated because they come on a student visa and they leave. And when they left, they took the expertise of higher education from here, and they were opening competitors' firms in India, China, wherever they are from. So if you do not want these skills to go away, then the best thing is make them stay here and invest their skills and capital here so that the thing stays here. So you can look more about it on a website other than Secretary of Education's website. It's called Global Detroit. In fact, they have an office here on 2nd, and they promote some of the things I was talking about. And in fact, the person who runs that organization is also interviewed for the movie. His name is Steve Tabachman. I think it's time for me to stop, and if you have any questions, I'll take them. Thank you very much. Yes.
I have a question back here. Something that you have here I think is very important. You said the retention of international graduate students in the area. How do you recommend a city like Detroit actually retains talent that it trains and often goes elsewhere? Do you have any recommendations for how that?
We have a challenge of retaining Michigan graduates in Michigan, leave aside the international graduates, right? So if we create that environment of investment and career opportunities, a lot of University of Michigan graduates leave. They get educated here, and maybe they're local people, but jobs are not here. So create the jobs that match their skills that they have acquired. That's the only way we can retain people.
questions?
Questions?
Well, thank you all for coming, and you can always email me if you have any concerns, questions.